Hello everyone, and welcome to today's InsideLocal webinar. Today our panel of esteemed local search experts will be discussing the local search ranking factors and debating some advanced questions on this topic, which will hopefully help you to confirm or refine the optimization work you do and hopefully build a good long-term strategy. On our panel today, we are lucky enough to have three excellent SEOs. I'm just going to jump to the next slide. We have David Mihm, Andrew Shotland, and Matthew Hunt. We are actually still waiting for Andrew to appear. He may have got caught in traffic or something like that. So in the meantime, we have David and Matthew to kind of see us through. And I'll give all these guys a quick introduction. I'm sure they're all known to most of you, but it's worth knowing if you don't know exactly how great these guys are. So David is the Director of Local Search at Moz.com. He's very highly regarded in the industry. Speaks at a lot of conferences, both in the US and internationally. He's also the creator and the curator of the local search ranking factor study. So it's safe to say that he knows a couple of things about today's topic. We have Andrew. Andrew's actually appearing on his second InsideLocal webinar within sort of 7 days. So a particular thank you to him. He has a huge amount of knowledge around local search, having worked in the industry for many, many years. He runs a search agency based in California. He's also a contributor to the local search ranking factor study. And blogs kind of endlessly on search engine land, and also his own blog, which is called thelocalseoguide.com. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. It's full of lots of pearls of wisdom. And then we have Matt. Matt is the COO of Powered by Search, who are an internet marketing agency based in Toronto. Before that, he had his own search consultancy. He's been in the industry for longer than most people and knows a lot about it. He's also a prolific blogger. He also contributes to the ranking factors study. He's actually a trained actor, so I'm looking forward to his delivery today, although from last year I do remember that he has a tendency to swear quite a lot when he gets excited. So we're going to be kind of counting swear words, Matthew, and billing you for every one that you utter. So guys, thank you very much for joining us today and for sharing your time, but also a big thank you to all the attendees who have signed up, showed up, and kind of giving us an hour of their time today. We really do appreciate it. Just before we kind of jump into the first part of the webinar, I want to kind of run through what we're going to be talking about today. So here's a quick agenda. I'll leave it on the screen for 20 seconds. You can just cast your eye down the list of topics we'll be running through so you know what's coming up. A bit of housekeeping stuff. You do have the question module in the GoToWebinar control panel, so please use that to kind of pose questions as you go. We've got Linda and Colin kind of working behind the scenes, kind of answering and helping out. Also look out for links and comments in the chat box. Any links that Linda or Colin want to share, they'll put those in there. And if you fancy tweeting about any of the content or at InsideLocal, please use the InsideLocal hashtag. The webinar is being recorded and it will be available on Friday, and you can download it or access it from BrightLocal.com and also the localsearchforum.com. So don't worry about that if you have to duck off earlier. You missed something, the recording will be available to you very soon. And so you can kind of stay in the loop. The slide deck that we're going to be running through is available right now on slideshare.net. David has actually got a few slides he's going to run us through. We haven't got those on slideshare.net. I'm hoping David will allow us to put those on at the end. And there's also going to be a follow-up email on Friday, which will give you, a link to the webinar recording, a link to the slide deck. So hopefully you can just sit back, relax, enjoy the kind of debate we're going to have, and know that you can always kind of catch up at any stuff that you happen to miss once that email comes through to you on Friday. We're also going to be running some polls, where we're going to be putting some questions to you as we go. We're running 3 polls during the webinar, so please look out for those and do take part. Kind of behind the scenes, like I said, we've got Linda from the Local Search Forum helping us out, and they're a kind of co-promoter for InsideLocal, so tons of thanks to her. She also had a new granddaughter born yesterday, so she's taken prized herself away for an hour to be with us, so we really appreciate that. We've also got Conan Nielsen from ImpressioMarketing.com, who's always a fantastic help, so Conan, thank you. And then you've got myself, and I am the CEO of BrightLocal.com. We've got quite a few of our customers listening in today, so thank you guys for sharing your time as well. Okay, I'm just going to come out of my presentation and hand over controls to David. David, are you ready?
I think so.
And Andrew is here. Andrew, hello.
Hey guys.
Hello there. Good to see you. You gave me a very glowing introduction. I hope you caught that.
No, I missed it, but I'm sure it was awesome.
Great. So David, over to you. Why don't you take us through the slides you've got?
Yeah, so Miles just asked me to give a quick overview, hopefully no more than about 6 or 7 minutes of this year's survey. So many of you know that I've run this survey for, I think, the last 7 years. basically asking all of the top minds in local search what they think is going on with the local algorithms at Google. And there's about 40 or so participants every year, of which Matthew and Andrew are both in the regular invite list. And so I just wanted to kind of go through some of the results from the most recent edition. So basically, here's what we're looking at. It's a fairly complex algorithm, I think, at a very, very high level. You've got plenty of strength still given by the respondents to Google My Business. This used to be, I think, a little bit bigger chunk of the pie when we first started with the Google Local Business Center, but increasingly external factors like citations, incoming links, reviews are starting to kind of eat up more and more of what this pie is, and I think we're going to talk in some detail about each of these later today. This year I actually I think this is maybe the second year that I've done this. I kind of split people's responses into localized organic results versus pack, now local knowledge pack results instead of the carousel, and kind of tried to break down or ask them to break down what the differences between these two types of results are. So if you're trying to compete in organic search more than local, but still are interested in local traffic, look at the factors on the left. Basically links and on-page optimization become much more important. If you're trying to compete in pack results or carousel results, reviews and some of the place signals become more important. So fairly straightforward in terms of the basics. These are kind of the top. I kind of, just for simplicity's sake, I kind of split up the survey this year and kind of capped the top results at 50 to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff. One really interesting signal that gained a lot of ground this year was click-through rate from search results. And Darren Shaw of Whitespark actually did a great presentation yesterday at State of Search in Dallas that's on SlideShare. So if you want to know more about the evidence for why click-through rate is becoming more important, check out his presentation. I think more interesting to me as someone, and probably many of you who have been in the space for quite a while, are the difference-making factors in competitive markets. And here we really see a strong move towards quality, much more than quantity. So quality of citations, quality of links, quality of mentions from local news sources and sources in your industry. These are the things that seem to be making a difference in competitive markets today. And then Pigeon had just happened when I asked people to respond this year. So I added a question asking people what they thought the shifts were as a result of Pigeon. And one interesting factor that I want to highlight here that appeared on both increasing in importance and decreasing in importance is a physical address in the city of search. And so I wanted to try to explain maybe why that is happening. Kind of a confusing thing at first glance. But Andrew actually wrote a great post for Search Engine Land back in June asking if your local business was ready for Google's neighborhood algorithm. And essentially the gist of this piece, if I can paraphrase Andrew, it's a little awkward given that Andrew's actually on this webinar, but essentially Google's getting much, much better at detecting location at a very granular level. And so, in many cases, searchers are not even typing in geographic modifiers to these keywords, but Google's still able to identify where they're looking for local businesses. And so here's kind of the result of this kind of new, I think, I don't know if I'd call it a complete algorithm, but certainly a component of the recent algorithm. If you do a generic search these days for something like convenience store or any term that Google thinks has local intent, I think post-Pigeon or certainly over the course of the summer, we're seeing a little bit tighter radius towards for these phrases where you don't use a geographic modifier. When you add a geographic modifier like convenience store Portland, Google is drawing a bigger radius that actually incorporates more addresses that are in the city of search. So I think that we're definitely seeing a shift towards proximity of locations to where the search is being conducted, but as you add these geographic modifiers, that radius widens. And this held true in some research I did prior to the SMX conference in New York this October. This holds true across pretty much every category that I looked at in every market. So if you look at even the zoom level of the map here for orthodontists in a neighborhood of Austin, Texas, you see if I add Austin, Google actually draws a wider radius. Here, car dealers in Denver, again, add the geographic modifier, and Google draws a little bit wider radius for results. Same thing for bankruptcy lawyer in New York. So a pretty consistent finding that certainly after Pigeon's release, I think that this kind of behavior from Google is becoming more consistent. In terms of where we might be headed in the future, I kind of see the algorithm as evolving in this general manner. We started out, as I mentioned, Google My Business, or at the time Google Local Business Center signals played a really big role in the algorithm. Very basic factors like on-page optimization and how close you were to the city centroid played a significant role. The algorithm matured a little bit. Reviews started to play a little bit bigger role. We saw the sort of blended organic results where links again started to play a primary role in who was ranking well. Now, as a result of Pigeon, I think we're seeing things like click-through rate, these behavioral signals. We're seeing proximity to searcher. These things are starting to kind of take some of that pie away from the more basic signals like on-page optimization and proximity to centroid. And I think in the future we're going to continue to see that evolve towards the searcher, towards behavior. And one way I think that we're going to that Google at least will start to identify more and more businesses is by reviews. I think that reviews, if they haven't already, are certainly becoming mainstream to the extent that Facebook just released the Facebook Places directory this week, which relies heavily on people leaving reviews and check-ins and those sorts of things on Facebook. I think Google will start to look at reviews even more moving forward. So that's kind of my prediction for the 2015 edition of the local search ranking factors is I think we'll start to see things move further towards the searcher and towards human signals. For now, I think Miriam Ellis, one of the respondents for this year's survey, kind of hit the nail on the head. Doesn't really feel like anything's becoming less important necessarily. It's just that you might be getting a little less out of everything that you were doing in 2013. So that's kind of, I think, in a nutshell. I don't see that the local ranking factors have changed all that much. I don't know if Andrew or Matt disagrees with that, but I think Miriam really hit the nail on the head. Keep doing best practices. That's what's going to serve you well in the long run.
Okay, David, that's great. Obviously, we'll kind of dive into some of the kind of details of that, but that's a great kind of scene setter for us. So thank you. I'm just going to grab control. That's me. David, that was a wonderful sort of prelude, so thank you for that. So I'm going to start off with a kind of summary question, a bit of unconventional. I might put this to Matt first. So Matt, scenarios, you've got a friend who's got a local business. What are your 3 top tips for that for ranking success, for local ranking success? What would you advise them to focus on?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, I think this is where it comes back to sort of the ABCs, the basics. I'd say it's probably 4 if it's for local. I mean, website first, and then links and citations and reviews. Those are the 4 that you need to focus on if you're a small business and you want to keep it simple.
Okay, Andrew, do you want to jump in on that as well?
Yeah, so I totally agree. I guess if you want to get it slightly more granular, you could say technical proficiency on your website, which for one-page websites it doesn't really matter, but the more pages you add to your website, the more screw-ups are likely to happen as we're dealing. One of the reasons why I was late this morning was because we're dealing with a lawyer client that just basically blew out their entire website for no apparent reason. And so technical proficiency, let's just say that's the only one you need to worry about. Everything else is kind of obvious.
Okay, that's great. And obviously we're going to go into more detail. I think we're just going to jump to our first poll now. So first poll is, for everyone out there, everyone listening, please do take part. The question is, do you think it's harder to rank in local search now than 12 months ago? From your own personal experience, how are you finding it? Over 60% voted, which is excellent. All of you pretty much are saying it's getting harder, which kind of correlates with kind of Miriam's comment that David kind of talked through, but that you're not getting the same kind of ROI from the efforts you're putting in. Okay, we'll stop close the poll there. Thank you very much to everyone who voted. That's a great result, and we'll give you the answers back at the end of the webinar. So next question, and I'm going to put this over to David. Organic versus local. How is the current balance of power split between organic versus local signals?
Sure. So, as I mentioned in my intro deck, I think it clearly depends on the types of results that Google is showing for keywords in your category. I think one of the things that Pigeon did in certain categories was eliminate packs. I think Andrew has some great research on, particularly in the real estate vertical, the packs really have gone away. And I think even where packs still appear, I think that there's still, considerably more organic influence today than there was, say, 3 or 4 years ago, when essentially citations and reviews, along with a few custom categories at Google Local Business Center, could take you into the pack. And I don't think that that's the case as much anymore, at least in competitive markets. I think I think that the goal of Pigeon was really to reward strong web signals, even in local packs, beyond the organic results. And so I would say that the balance is kind of shifting more towards organic, particularly with an emphasis on brand signals. So to the extent that you have a lot of anchor text, mentioning your business with your exact business name, to the extent that people are mentioning you on social media, in newspaper articles, these sorts of things, I think that's really that's kind of the newer direction that Pigeon has really turned up the throttle, turned up the dial on brand signals as they relate to rankings.
So is this an indication that Google doesn't trust local signals as much as it used to? Is it finding that it's not getting the same quality of results by sort of focusing on those?
I don't necessarily. I think it's just part of a larger trend that Google is taking a more holistic view of companies' activities online, and to the extent, as I said, that those companies look like brands, that they act like brands, that they're not stuffing different keywords in business names across the web, that they're not using tracking phone numbers, these types of things. I think that's I think it's a much more holistic view that Google's taking.
Okay, great. Thank you, David. Anyone else, guys? Either of you want to comment on that? Matthew or Andrew?
Oh, I'll have a quibble just on David's use of language. I think there's plenty of brands that use tracking phone numbers, but I think most brands, if they're watching it, would have gone like, "What are you talking about?" But other than that, yeah, I agree with Dave.
Okay, great. We're going to jump into, we're going to look at the next slide, which is kind of, a topic of kind of links to citations. So I've got a few kind of questions around here. I've seen a few questions kind of coming in on the kind of Q&A about that. I know it's going to be a big topic. So, Matt, first question for you. Which you got to consider to be more powerful and important? When you're sitting down, you're focusing on some optimization work for a new customer. Where do you put links and citations in the order of priority of what you do?
Sure. So sometimes links can be citations, and sometimes citations can sort of be links. I know that the definition of citation is really the mention of your business name, address, and phone number. And a link is a hyperlink that goes back to your website. Sometimes you can sort of kill two birds with one stone. But what I like to differentiate, the difference between sort of citations and mentions and links is this, is on our team we say citations and mentions are more about passive or submission-based building, where links are, I find, that are a little bit harder, where you usually need some sort of asset or content to earn them or go out and chase them down for someone to mention and link to your business. So citations and these passive link building strategies that you use to get citations or links, where you're submitting to directories or claiming your brand on places like Yelp or Facebook, are good things to do, and they're really easy to do. And I'd say that if you were a new business, that's probably the first thing you want to do, is go and claim your brand across all the major channels that you can and earn those links where you can. There's a lot of great databases out there that you can get for citation submissions. So for us, we like to do when we're chasing citations, we have our own database that we have. We just have an Excel we've been collecting for a long time, editing and improving it. And we'll sort it we'll sort that list by, we have sort of the top 50 you want to hit right away, that is just standard. And then after that, we'll sort it based on category and then or city. And usually we try and sort it based on, as well as do follow links at the same time as a citation and submit to those next. And we work our way through the list. I mean, our database literally has, I don't know, thousands of lists that are in it. Now, when it comes to links, links are important, particularly links that do have anchor text. Now, you don't want to manipulate the web on getting these links, but what I recommend is a lot of businesses already have great links. And what they just really need to do is review their existing links and maybe see some that are linking maybe not with an anchor text that they want or their brand name, and try and reach out to those companies and see, since they're already linking, if they'll change the anchor text. Sometimes just getting the anchor text changed on the link that you already have can make a dramatic difference in your local rankings. If you can get a local modifier on there or the category modifier in that anchor text, go for it.
Okay, great. You made an interesting point there about the kind of distinguishing sort of part between you go out and build citations. It's a kind of proactive event that you can kind of control, versus links. It tends to be about earning them. Question for you, Andrew. Is there a way to kind of earn citations as opposed to actually just going out to the typical suspects and building them yourself? Is there a way to earn them from, or how would you go about earning them from sites that you wouldn't typically get a citation from?
I don't know if I'd call it earning. I mean, you earn it by being a business in the U.S. or Canada or wherever, and being included in a bunch of databases. So congratulations, you just incorporated, you've earned your citation.
But beyond that, say news sites or sites that don't typically provide structured citations, do you have any sort of tactics for kind of going, we're talking about doing unstructured citations.
Yeah, but now you're really just talking about either PR or links, right? So I think you're splitting hairs. Our take on it is you always go after the citations first, because those are in theory, the easiest to get or easiest to deal with, and can also cause a lot of problems if they're not consistent or there's just some irregularity about them. But more and more, especially over the last year, a typical client is coming to us because they had a previous SEO firm doing risky link building for them, and they've been really hurt by it. And so which is more powerful, important? I don't know. It's kind of important and powerful to cure the patient of cancer before you start like feeding them nutrients to grow big and strong. On the other side, with new businesses, we've done a lot of post-pigeon spam tests where we set up fake businesses, and we were able to get them ranking within hours. Sometimes take a couple days, but really fast, using a virtual office address, just doing a Yext power listing to get their citations up really fast, or perhaps a InsideLocal listing. So citations for many local queries may be all you really need if you have a decent domain.
I think you nailed it on the head about doing an audit first, Andrew, that the first step is audit what you have and make sure your data is clean. Yeah, that was important. Just like you said, before you start, doing other things, let's treat the cancer first before we start. It makes sense.
Yeah, and by the way, for anyone who's the agency people listening to this webinar will get it right away. But for any local businesses that are listening to this, I mean, you kind of have to come to grips with reality that you were kind of driving in the fast lane for a long time and getting away with it, and now you got caught, and whoever's going to come in and take over that situation, they're probably going to have to spend a decent amount of your budget just getting you back to normal before they get you ranked for anything. It's just one of the realities of this business at the moment, and we get a lot of calls from companies that have been killed by Google for whatever reason, and when we say, look, it's going to take us some time just to like dig you out of the hole, they're always kind of like, some of them are like, yeah, we understand, but a lot of them are like, what? Why can't we just start tomorrow?
Yeah. Sure. So there's a sort of a lack of understanding or knowledge gap between if local business owners kind of know what they need to do, particularly if it's been working well for them in the past, and suddenly things change, to kind of explain what they have to do. It's quite a bitter pill to swallow when you say that all that work and money you've spent actually is now detrimental to you rather than being positive and driving you forward.
Yeah, and there's plenty of them who get it because they've been around the block enough, but it's never a fun conversation.
What about sources of local links, Andrew? If you were looking around, news sites or anything locally, are there any ones that you think are kind of go-to opportunities that you use for your customers?
So we're big fans. As Matt said, there's plenty of links out there already that you can reclaim, as it were. There's plenty of partners and associations that these guys are members of. We're really big fans of finding out what charity events these guys are typically involved in, and then figuring out how to use that, and then if not, then figuring out which they could get involved in. So we've become quite the expert in, this month we're quite the expert in the turkey runs in every friggin' market in the country, because you'll see all of our clients are participating in those. 5 and 10.
No idea what a turkey run is.
It's basically a usually 5 or 10K race that is done around Thanksgiving to raise money for some local charity.
I figured it was some sort of crazy U.S. thing to do with Thanksgiving.
A poutine run would be maybe the equivalent.
David, in your slides, you obviously talked about distinguishing factors that make it, or difference-making factors. A lot of those appear to be around citations. So could you maybe go into more detail about, the balance of kind of quantity of citations versus quality, and how you see things playing out now and in the future?
Sure. So, and before I get into that, I agree with everything Andrew and Matt just said. I think whoever's listening is getting great advice from all the panelists. So I think the framework that I've always thought of citations in is that Google really wants to see your business mentioned on the prominent sites in your industry and in your area, right? And how they judge prominence, how they judge authority, has to do with the reputation and the link profile and everything else of those sites. So to the extent that the traditional directory sites like Yelp and TripAdvisor and all of these sort of horizontal players, to the extent that they've survived the Panda and Penguin updates, I think that they're still very much seen as authority websites for local businesses to be listed on. I think that the long tail of exact match keyword.info directories, which may have worked for you 5-6 years ago, I think that those are no longer seen as authority websites by Google. I don't know that the sort of scoring mechanism has necessarily changed for citations being a factor. I think that the sites that are considered authority references to your business is simply being affected by Google getting smarter about what actually are the authorities. So anymore, I think you absolutely still need to make sure you've got clean, consistent data at the major aggregators, the sites we know Google is taking feeds from directly. The prominent horizontal directories, as I said, Yelp, TripAdvisor, depends on your industry. In the legal space, it's sites like Avvo, sites like Martindale, Hubble, those types of things. And then beyond that, it's really about being on these locally authoritative websites. And in many cases, those are the charities, as Andrew mentioned, or local schools. If you host a donation drive for canned foods or clothing or whatever these types of things around the holidays, those are places that Google likes to see local businesses participating in these community events. And so I absolutely think that it's much more about, it's certainly still about quality with the aggregators and the top horizontal sites. Beyond that, I would focus on vertical sites in your directory and sites that are really important in your local area.
Yeah,
Great.
Can I jump in? Can I jump in
Yeah,
on that,
sure.
Miles?
Yeah.
So first of all, Dave is absolutely saying the right things, right? And that's, if you only have so many hours in the day, he's right. That said, doing pretty simple queries shows that Google may not be so all about high quality. And in particular, there's one that I always find amusing. If you just search local SEO Pleasanton as in Pleasant, California, which is where I live, you'll see my site comes up in a one box. And if you look at the knowledge panel to the right of the results, you'll see there's a more reviews section. And the more reviews sites listed for me are Merchant Circle, Insider Pages, Yahoo.com, all fine. And then something called rankinsider.com. And in fact, up until a few weeks ago, there was some site, I think it was called abumba.com, which if you went to those URLs, they all 404'd. I'm sure it had something stupid on it before. And I've seen this over and over again with local businesses where Google is referencing junk sites as citations. So at some point, maybe they'll get rid of those, but there's still plenty of junk sites that can help your SEO, I guess is what I'm saying.
Interesting. We'll talk about kind of reviews in a minute, Andrew. Thanks for kind of commenting on that. Okay, we're just going to jump to our second poll now, which is, do you spend more time working on link building or managing citations? Just going to launch that now. If you guys could just take the time to vote and answer, that would be great. Andrew, to go on that point while people are kind of voting, in terms of those kind of lower quality sites creeping in, is that due to there not being you don't have enough reviews on kind of higher quality, higher authority sites? Is that part of the factor that those sites get included in that kind of select list by Google?
It's possible. As an example, there just aren't that many reviews of my business out on the web. So it's quite possible that that's the best they can find. Then again, if you look at, in this case, let's say go to rankinsider.com, it's not a review of me. It's it has the word reviews on a profile of me that they scraped. So, and they probably, I bet if we looked at it, they would have, they probably have a schema tag in there that says review. So it's totally spam.
Yeah. So yes, so it's a misscraping, a misclassification by Google then.
Yeah.
Okay.
But David, you're listed as a related link on that page, so that's probably what takes it over the top.
I'm just going to close that poll down now, guys, and go to...
and Matt, I think you're up there too.
Yeah, for sure that's it.
I didn't think you guys knew each other. You're like best friends.
I thought maybe that's how you were judging it as a low-quality site, Andrew.
I have actually a crawler that raises out as a flag.
That sounds like a terrible neighborhood to me. I don't want to be associated there with you guys. Okay, so I've got a question. I'll probably this one to Matt actually. So we're looking at kind of reviews and reputation. The number of factors. If you look at local search ranking factors, it's kind of the number of sort of signals in the kind of reviews and reputation bucket is quite significant, and they cover off a range of things such as the quantity of reviews, the star rating, even the nature and the authority of the individual reviewer. So it's quite a kind of complex mix of factors there. Matt, which do you think is the most important and impactful of these, or can you really not separate them?
Between count, rating, and then the actual reviewers, like in the sense of like, do they have any sort of review rank?
Their profile, exactly.
You know what? I don't really know for sure. I think that we'd all agree that reviews are important at the end of the day, obviously for click-through rates as well as increasing sales. How much it contributes to the actual ranking, I don't know. We know that in Google Places specifically that you need 5 reviews right now. Currently, it's changed before. I think it's been 10 at one point. Now it's back to 5 for those golden stars to show up next to your listing, assuming that you're in one of the packs. And so that immediately is going to draw more attention to what's going on with your listing. So I would encourage you that if you don't have at least 5, that you try and ask your clients and customers to get them, to write them for you. What we do, we try and make it as easy as possible for people to write reviews for our clients. And so we've created our own review funnel. Most of the sites we build are usually on WordPress, and we've just created some templates where we have them email their clients, and we create the templated email for them and tell them how many times they need to email them. We actually try and get them to email 4 or 5 times before they give up over a period of time. But if you email them this link, it'll go to a page that literally says, "We're happy with our services," with a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And if the thumbs is up, we redirect them to another page that offers a couple of places we want to grow reviews on. It could be Google Places, it could be other authority review sites. And there'll be usually a video, and above it it'll say something along the lines of, do you have a Gmail account? If it's a Gmail, well, then review us over to your Google Places. If it's like, do you have a Yahoo account, then Yahoo Local, and so forth. You get the idea. And the video shows them how to do it. They click to the link, and it brings them and makes it really easy. Now, if they say, no, I didn't have a good experience with the company, we obviously don't want to send them over to the review site. What we do is we then keep them on the site, and we go through a survey. And we ask them, where did we screw up, and if we get in touch with you, can we make it right? Because obviously, at the end of the day, we want that feedback, or the client wants that feedback to make their business better, and then they also want to turn a happy customer into a happy customer. So that's sort of how we handle reviews. I think that it's important. I think that you can't just only focus on just Google Places. What I would look at is looking your cities and adjacent cities for your niche in Google Places and see what other review sites are getting picked up to find out what the authorities are. And you'll find out maybe what those authority review sites are. You probably already know what they are, but you don't want to just only get reviews at Google Places. I think a nice diversified amount of reviews from different authority review sites is a good plan. So if you're in the legal niche, that would be ABO, I believe. You know, in Canada, if you're a home contractor in the contract niche, you want to get from Home Stars, and you'll see those. I think Facebook is showing up a lot right now. I think Facebook's going to be a huge source that they're going to reference often for reviews. What do you guys think?
David, Andrew?
When it comes to reviews, so we've definitely seen the 5 review effect for sure. So agree with Matthew on that. In general, if you want to think about it from an algorithmic point of view, from the choices you have up here, I'd actually go with quality of reviewers. And by quality of reviewers, I'm typically thinking of someone on Yelp who has a ton of connections and has written a ton of reviews. And the only reason that's important, not that Google gives them some special preference, because I don't believe they do, but that it creates a bunch of internal links to your profile page from within that site, which just means better SEO for it.
That's a good tip.
That's interesting. David, do you think, and I was going to ask another question I had sort of pre-planned, was, you know, does Google grade reviewers, even on their own service or other services? And if so, you know, how do they do that?
I think you're on mute, David.
Thanks,
David.
I do think that they grade reviews. I do think they grade reviewers on Google+, and the evidence for that is the Google City Experts program, which was very similar to Yelp Elite. So they're clearly tracking active reviewers in given markets. You know, I guess I wouldn't necessarily say that they're somehow assigning a, you know, higher rank to a business because it's been reviewed by a city expert. But I do think that reviews from people who have clearly established Google accounts means that those reviews are less likely to get filtered. And the exact same is true with Yelp. I mean, if you've reviewed 10 businesses and you've connected with, you know, a dozen friends on Yelp, the odds that your reviews get filtered go way, way down. So to the extent that you can get reviews from people who have left reviews of other businesses and who have these social connections and are clearly not spammers, they're more likely to stick and then I think influence both click-through and potentially rankings.
Well, there's some sort of silent ranking that's going on. I mean, the fact that they allow you to sort them by most helpful is something that they're looking at.
I just don't think there's enough. I just don't think there's enough signal for it to be significant, right? For every restaurant that has 500 reviews, there's 50,000 that have like 1, right? So.
No, they used to put out those categories or those snippets from the reviews. Remember, guys? I don't see that showing up anymore. Do you still see those little, you know, keywords getting pulled from reviews on the Google Places listings?
Absolutely, and in fact, they have humans now writing those snippets, and some of the things that are showing up in the most recent local knowledge pack or hamburger pack, whatever you want to call it, those are increasingly human-written snippets from Google, largely based on the text of reviews that, you know, people have left for these businesses. So.
Bruce, they have
I'm not going with hamburger pack later.
I'm not either.
I'm down with hamburger pack. No way.
Yeah.
David, your kind of predictions for where, you know, the ranking factors is going, you said that you thought more impact and sort of power was going to be assigned to reviews. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the reasons for that is, you know, Google is if you talk to Googlers, they're very excited about the idea of predictive search. So being able to essentially preempt a voice search or a physical, you know, somebody typing in a keyword and actually identifying, oh, you know, you, David, you obviously, you've reviewed about 10 breweries in Portland. You just landed in San Francisco. Did you know there's this hot new brew pub that just opened on Market Street? You should check it out. And Foursquare is largely thinking in the same direction. And so I absolutely think that Google sees reviews as central to helping them predict what businesses you're going to like, and that we will see. I don't know if it's a, you know, I don't know if this is 20.
Your reviews, David? Do you mean your reviews or reviews that they're finding that people are leaving on businesses?
Yeah, so I think that they're using both your reviews. I think that they plan to use both your reviews and reviews of your cohort to surface to surface businesses that you're more likely to like. In fact, Google Hotpot, when it first came out, Portland was the first city where it was released, and that was really one of the selling points of Hotpot, was to get better recommendations because of who you, the consumer, are leaving reviews for. And I think that there's definitely still some of that logic, existent at Google and probably expanding. So that's why I'd say I think reviews are central to Google's vision for a local future, and I think that they'll continue to increase in importance.
That's a great bit of advice. I'm just going to jump on the next question, guys. You've got a few more to go through.
I want to hear what Andrew, you look skeptical. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, no, I was just really, I don't know, I got a thrill hearing someone actually mention the phrase Google Hotpot. I hadn't heard that.
I was thinking I hadn't heard it for such a long time.
I think there's still billboards up in neglected neighborhoods of Portland.
Right.
I imagine Linda's getting a lot of questions on the Q&A.
Like, what is Google Hotpot?
Yeah.
What is Google Hotpot?
Exactly. It goes to that turkey run thing. You have turkey in the hot
There's
pot.
some guy, there's somebody in a cubicle in Google right now who has a big Hotpot banner, and he's like trying to keep it alive.
That's where you show your age too when you're talking about things like that.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah. It's been through many iterations, many guises since then. So this is kind of behavioural signals, and I personally found this really interesting, kind of digging into this when the kind of survey came out this year. So, David, obviously, you've probably got the biggest eye on the survey itself. What are the main behavioural signals? You could just sort of summarise those for everyone listening.
So I think the click-through rate is really the one that stands out to my mind. Rand, our CEO at Moz, has this working group called the Internet Marketers something collaborative, experimental collaborative or something, IMEC Labs. And so he's actually demonstrated this at conferences, including MozCon, that, if all of a sudden, in the case of MozCon, if 1,000 people in Seattle are clicking the same result in a pretty short time frame, that can literally immediately bump that local business up the rankings. Doesn't always work. As I said, Darren Shaw just presented a great deck that's on SlideShare from State of Search in Dallas. In more competitive verticals or at various points, it doesn't work consistently across the board. But I do think that Google is certainly testing click-through as a ranking factor and potentially stickiness of pages and whether or not they're mobile optimized, these sorts of things that they're using to see what the experience of visiting a business or the presence of a business is. I do think that these are likely to increase in importance going forward.
So these so Matt, go on.
Yeah, so click-through rate, I think that is one. I think as well it has a lot to do with dwell rate, as well as are you coming back when you do another search in the search engine, you're searching for the same term again. So I think Google's looking at, if you don't search for the same term and there's been enough dwell rate where you've been on a website or did something else, it has a positive influence to your rankings. However, there's also the negative influence too, that if someone clicks through and comes back to the search engine doing the same search again, that could probably also negatively influence your rankings to some degree. And then locally, I think there's some work, and Mike Ramsey talked about this a bit at some point, I think at Moz this year as well too. And I think there's some correlation too. We started playing with it recently, but I also think directional, searching for directions has an influence on what's going on. So on site, we've been redirecting them if people are searching for directions so that it goes and searches Google Maps. I don't have any data yet to know if it's actually helping improve rankings or if there's enough volume for it, but I think there's something with searching for directions that can help as well.
Oh, that's really interesting. What was sort of the phrase of that kind of when you jump from the search engine to the site and back again? Is it pogoing or something? Is that right?
Pogo sticking.
Yeah. So Google's kind of using these behavioural factors to kind of sort of experiential, aren't they? Are people going to the site and having the right experience based on those kind of tests to gain the algorithm where you've got 1,000 people clicking through? Is the effect short-lived then if those people go to the site? They see it, and Google sees a spike in click-through, which doesn't result in much time spent on the site. does that actually then have a negative effect downstream, David? Have you seen anything from that?
So I think Darren's slides would say otherwise, that he's got weeks worth of data from his experiments in the last couple of months that suggests that a lot of these things can have lasting effect. So it does seem to vary by the market. We don't necessarily have the mechanism figured out, but I think that it can have lasting effects. Beyond just the short time window where these experiments were done.
David, do you think what happens though is that if you're sort of manipulating it a little bit by running these tests and you improve your rankings, that then you get the natural taking effect that makes it stickier, because you move up the page, or page, let's say you're ranking number 2 or number 1. Now people are engaging with your website like they normally would, unless you have a really shitty website. There's the first swear word, not bad, guys. It would probably stick at that point. Do you think that may have something to do with it as well, why it sticks and has a lasting effect?
Potentially, there's some self-fulfilling prophecy there, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I can see that being a signal that becomes much harder to game in time. If it's that easy to do it, and there are sites like Fiverr out there, then people can just go and do this for a tiny amount of money. Presumably, that's something that Google is going to get more sophisticated in terms of understanding.
Yeah, micro workers, Mechanical Turk. I believe they're already gaming this. So yeah, that's already happening. I think. I don't think that's old.
Yeah. I guess hard to kind of prove that it's been gamed. Like building spammy links is much easier because there's a link in evidence on a bad site, a bad neighborhood. But how hard is it how easy is it to Google detect when you pay X hundred people to kind of go and click? Whether that's going to be something that can kind of get you penalised down the line. It'll be interesting to see. In the kind of similar vein to kind of behavioural signals, there's also the kind of personalisation factors. And I think one primary question is there anything you could do to influence personalisation factors so that you can gain more prominent ranking? Andrew, do you want to pick that up?
I think the answer is pretty simple. You just need to be very active with a lot of people on the web. And the more connections you have and the more active you are, the more likely personalization will have effect on any one person who might be in your web, right? I don't think it's any more complicated than that.
And so when you say more active, can you give just for those listening in a kind of a sort of tangible example of what you mean?
Sure. So we do a lot of work with, let's say, attorneys. And so you can imagine if an attorney, so people aren't looking for an attorney every day. But if an attorney creates a wide net of connections on, let's say, Google+, with 1,000 people in their community, and all those people have personalization turned on Google, and this person is actively talking about, let's just say, family law issues or whatever, criminal law. When someone in their web, in their connection circle, decides that they need an attorney and they go and start to search on these issues in Google, that person's probably, their Google Plus content is probably going to show up. It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
So it has the ability, I mean, being obviously kind of, there's also kind of other sort of, offline sort of benefits of being more kind of interactive with your community. But you said that the impact of personalization factors affects a much narrower group of people than other factors. So say more reviews can benefit your ranking, people to everyone, but personalization affects a narrower set of people who are all interconnected already.
Right, which is why it's called personalization, right? It's not supposed to be for everybody. It's supposed to be very targeted. And that's the problem with it. It's not a particularly good, scalable solution for someone who needs to get in front of millions of people, let alone thousands of people in your town.
No, but again, on the flip side of that, it could drive a much higher quality of kind of lead through to you because there's already some sort of connection between your business and that customer.
Right, and so I think where personalization strategies might really make sense is for local businesses that have where it really makes sense to be constantly involved in the community because one, they always have things to talk about that people are interested in, and two, they're the kind of searches that people do often. So like a restaurant, I think it could really make sense to try to kind of gain personalization, but really what you're talking about is just PR. Like, can you often be in someone's mind enough that they want to connect with you? And so when they search in Google, you're more likely to show up.
Exactly. Yeah. So very, very powerful, but not scalable.
Yeah. We don't. Let's just say for our attorney clients, we don't really spend a huge amount of time thinking about this problem for them, unless they're really like, we love to blog and we love to hang out on Google Plus all day long instead of, try cases.
That would be the first attorney I've heard that's true, Andrew. So.
Yeah. Okay, David, I'm going to come to you the next question. We've got about 10 minutes, so I'm just going to run through the last couple of questions, polls, and then I think that'll be us done. So looking at the kind of desktop versus mobile and the algos that drive the maps, what are the kind of key differences between what's driving desktop and what's driving mobile?
Yeah, I think this is pretty obvious as well. With mobile, Google has a lat long, unless for some reason you've disabled location on your Maps app, which is, I'm not sure there are too many people that have done that. And so generally Google's going to preference, it makes it much easier for Google to preference businesses that are, nearby you. Obviously for a coffee shop, that means steps away. For a trophy store, that's probably, within miles. These sorts of things, but I think Google will definitely show a much tighter radius of businesses for searches done on a mobile device, at least through the app. The desktop differences seem to be increasingly minimal, given what Andrew wrote about earlier this summer. But I'm sorry, the search, if you go to Google.com, but I think in the app, it's certainly much more geared to where you are physically.
And that's obviously kind of focusing on the location question. How about other signals that kind of make you more likely to be sort of served up on mobile results, such as obviously having a mobile optimized site for it being an obvious one? Are there any other sort of distinctions like that, and maybe sort of strategies that businesses and SEO should be thinking about when they want to get more traffic from maps, from mobile?
From mobile maps or just mobile?
Well, let's go kind of broaden it out and say both in this case.
Yeah, they should get to understand the technical aspects of mobile SEO, which are pretty simple. Basically, you need a couple of tags between your desktop version and your mobile version if you have separate URLs. That's really straightforward. If you have a responsive site, it's even easier, meaning like the same URL. There are a couple of little subtleties you can screw around with in terms of content, the difference in content between pages, but other than that, anyone who's like a mobile SEO specialist is a bullshitter, I think, because there's something to it, right? There's a couple of little things you need to do, but mostly it's pretty similar to non-mobile SEO.
I think it makes a bigger difference for huge companies where they have the ability to not only optimize content serving, but also do tons of conversion optimization around mobile. I think that's really where the value is. Most small businesses that I'm not doing any consulting anymore, but in the past I've worked with, if you're getting 1,000 visits a month and 200 of those are coming from mobile devices, you're not really going to get that big a benefit from a mobile SEO, as Andrew was saying.
Okay, that's great. We're going to our sort of final question. So the third poll, actually, before we jump into that, I'll just file this up. So this question.
Can we just jump in for 1 second there? Because yesterday Google did launch something that says whether or not if a URL is mobile friendly, that's supposed to show up in the SERPs. So that could have an impact on whether or not you're going to get clicks from a mobile device.
When a URL is mobile friendly, how does that distinguish that between the site itself?
Well, they can tell.
So Google basically, a couple weeks ago, they launched something called mobile usability or in Webmaster Tools. And so I guess they have some algorithm that somehow determines whether or not your site is mobile friendly or not. And I haven't really seen it in action yet, but in theory, if your site isn't mobile friendly, it won't get this tag, and if it is, it will. And that might influence click behavior, but I haven't seen it yet in the wild, so I don't know.
Just use Google Page Insights for speed, or just type Google speed test, and you can type in your URL, and it'll tell you right away, how mobile friendly your website is. And if it's not scoring well, that's probably how they judge it.
On that note, I can't tell you I've ever seen a mobile URL that scored well on any site. So don't be bummed if you score 50 for your mobile URL.
I'm sure we're getting a ton of questions. Maybe Linda, if you could share that tip in the chat box, I'm sure that'll be of interest to lots of people. Andrew, thanks for bringing us back to that.
Now, are you just talking about the scoring for the speed, Andrew, or are you talking about the scoring for the user experience that they have on that?
Sure, you could look at the user experience thing and it gives you a couple of tips like, hey, make your touch targets smaller or something.
Right.
But mostly I'm talking about the speed.
Right. Yeah, the speed is pretty tough sometimes. It usually says the same bullshit every time. But on the user experience, I have found that, it does give like a pretty decent score that does range. And it might give you a good idea of whether they are seeing your website as being mobile friendly or not. It's just, who knows.
Linda, did you say you missed that? David's added in. David, cheers for adding that into the chat box. Just going with the third poll now. This one is, which aspects of local search do you find the trickiest? And the definition of trickiest I'm thinking here is, what is the most time-consuming, most sort of frustrating, the most kind of problematic for you as a kind of consultant and agent? Which ones you kind of dread doing, but you know that it's an essential thing you've got to do? We've only got 5 options in the poll's answer, so we've had to be creating fairly chunky categories there. If you guys can just take a bit of time to vote, that would be great. I'm going to shut this one down in about 5 seconds. In fact, I'll leave it open, but I'm just going to go to the next slide. So to finish things off, final question is, obviously we've been so entirely focused on Google Places, GMB, the algorithm there. How much do Bing and Yahoo's local algorithms differ from Google's in terms of the signals they use? And David, have you got any insights on that?
Sure. So I don't. I would defer to Andrew and Matthew on this question. I think they're probably much more in the weeds these days than I am.
Okay.
In the past, Google, I'll just say in the past, Bing's algorithm has seemed much more simplistic than Google's. Essentially, citations and on-page optimization seem to make a bigger difference in Bing, in my experience. Yahoo, I'm surprised they even still have a local search program, so I'm really at a loss for how that ranking works.
Matthew?
Yeah, sure. So, for me, I've been playing a little bit more with Bing lately, especially since now it's up in Canada. For a long time it wasn't. But I think what David said, some of the basic on-page things that you want to do, I mean, start by cleaning your listing, filling it out fully. I do find that Bing has some things that Google used to have that still sort of works. Like they have the category, but they also have specialties. And you could fill that out and add more keywords that can maybe help you show up more often in Bing. And Bing has some other different things too, where I believe that and I don't know if this is, I don't do a lot of restaurants anymore, but it used to be able to integrate with like OpenTable, and they seem to be a little bit more, being able to pull in more information socially maybe. And at one point, I don't do this often, but maybe Andrew, you might know this, but I think Groupon used to connect with them. Is that right? Or
yeah, I don't know off the top of my head.
I think you could also integrate your Groupon deals with them as well. There's some things that are a little bit different that are interesting. But at the end of the day, it's still filling out, claiming it, and building some citations will hopefully help your locations rank better within Bing local.
I would just say that in terms of sort of prioritizing energies and that sort of thing, I don't think that Bing is substantially different than Google, so I wouldn't encourage you to do necessarily anything else. And I would also, in terms of priorities, look at the percentage of traffic you're getting from Google versus either Bing or Yahoo, and in most cases that would suggest spending 90+% of your time on Google. So
yeah, that's it. We do get cases sometimes, particularly with multi-location companies, where Yahoo will change their layout or something, and they'll see an impact. So staying on top of those things, not for everybody, but it can pay off.
Okay, guys, that's great. I'm just trying to get the findings of the kind of polls through. Take a bit of time to kind of sync up. While that's coming through, take a bit of time to sort of sync up.
Can I answer one of your poll questions, Miles? Not the trickiest part of
yeah, go for it, Andrew.
I think you missed the biggest trick. which is managing client expectations. And if you're an in-house person, it's managing your in-house clients' expectations. This is as much art as it is science, and it's most people trying it who don't know what they're doing find it very frustrating, and yet they know they need to deal with it, and that is a tricky thing to deal with. And I think that's a lot harder than figuring out your citations. No offense, Dave.
That's great. Yeah, like I said, we weren't able to put everything in there, but yeah, I'm sure it's everyone has those frustrations probably in any business around the world. It's about managing expectations currently. So listen, guys, we're struggling to get the polls kind of tabulated and kind of loaded into Dropbox to share with you. So what we'll do is we'll just stick them in the presentation that we put onto SlideShare, and we'll send you the links to them to see. So unfortunately, that hasn't quite worked as smoothly as we'd like. But before we go, a very big thank you to our three panelists who have been absolutely fantastic. I have really, really enjoyed this. I've certainly kind of learned a lot, and you've probably dispelled some myths that I'd kind of built up in my mind about various things. So I've certainly got a lot from it. So guys, thank you very much for your time and your expertise that you shared with us. I'm looking forward to kind of hearing the feedback from this, because I have a feeling it's going to be extremely good. When we go next, a quick thanks also to Linda and Conan, who've kind of worked tirelessly kind of answering your questions and providing links. You guys have been great. You guys maybe may want to download the kind of Q&A now to post onto local search forums. So if anyone asked a question, or there are lots of good questions you saw coming in, Linda's going to download the kind of question sort of block that's come through. She's going to upload that onto the local search forum, so you can kind of go back and browse the questions and answers that have come through. And also, Linda, I know you're probably kind of itching to get back to your granddaughter, so we'll be wrapped up very soon. So thank you very much for sparing the time to help us out today. We've got some upcoming webinars. We've got some upcoming webinars in December. The third, we're looking at advanced optimization tips for Google Local. Then the 10th, we're doing troubleshooting of local ranking issues. And then we're having a pause for a month, but back on the 14th of January, looking at the state of local search. And we've got, again, a wonderful lineup of panelists that I know are going to be extremely insightful. This is the next one we've got coming up, which is advanced optimization tips. It's in 2 weeks today. I'm actually going to be in Kiev at that time, so I'll be hosting it from there. Hopefully, I'll have a good enough internet connection so it won't be troubling. But these are the guys that are joining us for that one, so please do sign up now to reserve your space. And thank you very much for watching. Panelists, guys, it's been great. Really enjoyed it. Thank you very much for spending some time with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Miles. Thanks, David. Thanks, Andrew.
Cool. Over and out, everyone. Take care where you are. Have a great day, and look forward to seeing you on the next InsideLocal webinar. Bye-bye now.